So Rishi Sunak gets up into the House of Commons yesterday, stands at the dispatch box and gives a pretty good account of himself as the first-time Chancellor of some renown, having only just started doing the job about a month ago. I'm joined now by John McDonnell, Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, of course, in the Labour Party. John, a very good morning to you.
Morning.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. It must feel a bit like the end of an era for you guys. Jeremy Corbyn gives his final kind of response yesterday before you get a new leader in the party. This is probably your last opportunity to talk about the Chancellor's job in this country.
Yes, it certainly is. I'll be standing down in a couple of weeks' time. We'll have a new leader. I'll go to the back benches and I'll become an elder statesman.
Well, you miss it.
Oh yeah, of course you do. There's, it's intensive. Nearly 5 years, and it's long hours, hard work, and a lot of challenges. But yeah, of course I will. But at the same time, when you've done it for 5 years at that intensity, sometimes it's looking for a break and it is about spending more time with your children and grandchildren. Mind you, they might not want to see me, I hope so.
Well, you could say you might spend some more time watching Liverpool play in the Champions League, but unfortunately they've gotten knocked out.
Oh, you had
Tragically.
to say that to me, didn't you? You rubbed salt in the wound.
I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. I've got to say that I'm standing next to somebody here who's an Atletico Madrid fan. That's why she made me mention it. But how about the tribute to you, though, by Rishi Sunak? Because it's a bit of a John McDonnell budget, this, isn't it?
Well, people are saying that, but let's be realistic about it. We have shoved them, definitely. We've pushed them in terms of some of the issues about needing to invest for the future, but nowhere near where it needs to go, nowhere near enough. And in addition to that, actually in some areas, significantly in the wrong direction. I was bitterly disappointed about the failure really to address the existential threat of climate change, and not only not addressing it, but also then to announce £27 billion worth of roads, which will ensure that we don't meet our climate change targets. So, no, it wasn't really. Of course, we've shifted them onto different ground, but nowhere near enough. And it's the usual Conservative tactics, really, which, to stay in power, what they'll do, they'll promise the earth, and I doubt that they'll deliver, and I think a lot of people will be pretty disappointed on this end eventually.
There are some people now, though, who wonder about the whole climate change kind of agenda and whether or not spending a whole load of money on it is the right thing to do. And particularly now when, what appears to be the existential threat to the world is coronavirus, not actually, anything to do with the climate.
You've got to deal with both. We've got three emergencies, haven't we? The first is the virus, and what we've got to do, and we've said this to the government, we'll support them in the programme they've brought forward. It needs more. We've said, look, on the NHS, we agree the NHS should get whatever is needed. It's a pity it's a crisis like the virus that's actually brought them to their senses on this. At least that's happened. On social care, my worry is they never said anything on social care yesterday. And we're saying we'll support them in funding social care, and they need to do that quickly because social care is about older people, the very people who are vulnerable to this virus. There's lots of people who are not going to access statutory sick pay, like low-paid zero-hour workers and part-time workers. So we're going to ask the government to look at that again. And we're also saying statutory sick pay is so low, £94 just above. It's not enough to keep people, out of poverty. So again, we'll be pressing them on that. So on the virus issue, yes, we'll support the government on that. No party politics on that. Just let's get on with the job and sort it. The other crisis that we've got is the emergency of public services. They did nothing about that yesterday. And then in terms of the climate change crisis, this is an existential threat. If we don't deal with it now, we're running out of time. Our children, our grandchildren will never forgive us. And not only did they not deal with it, I think they actually went in the wrong direction yesterday. So, of course, we've got to raise all those issues. And if we were in government, that would be our agenda. We would be doing it.
But there's a lot of people out there on the roads who are going to feel quite happy that more roads are going to be built and more roads are going to be made to be less congested and potholes are going to be fixed because the ordinary working people of this country, John, as you know, need to be able to get around and need to be able to get around fast.
Well, it's getting the balance right, isn't it? Let's go through it. In terms of the potholes, I have to say I almost fell about laughing yesterday because I think that's the third time that's been announced by the Conservatives. So you'll forgive me if I'm a bit cynical about that one. It's a bit like John Major's cones. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I remember
one?
the cone hotline, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like that. That's the third time this pothole thing has been announced. Anyway, and the potholes still haven't been filled. Anyway, in terms of the road building, the issue there now is we've got to invest in public transport, in buses and rail. and that certainly hasn't been done significantly enough by this government or yesterday. But on the roads issue, of course, if there's a need for an individual road that's absolutely strategic, that's fine. But alongside that, what you have to do is take people out of their cars into public transport, or make sure that what we're doing is developing electric cars. And what we would have been doing in government is, for example, we would introduce a scrappage scheme to get rid of the existing fossil fuel-driven cars. We'd introduce cheap loans to enable people to buy the new electric cars, but also we'd be producing them here with battery factories as well. No, none of that sort of strategic thinking was there with regard to this government.
Well, I think they're still waiting to see how this coronavirus thing plays out. I was down in Westminster yesterday in the tent at Talk Radio on College Green, and a lot of the MPs I was talking to were quite concerned about what happens in the next few weeks, really, particularly even just in regards to Parliament. I know you guys are closing up in a couple of weeks' time anyway. Have you had yourself tested, John? Are you urging other people to do so?
No, up until now, the advice has been if you have any concerns or symptoms, ring the 111 number and then they'll advise you accordingly. They haven't advised us to be tested yet, but I'm saying actually we should move on to that now, because in Parliament now, as you know, there's been a number of individual MPs and others that now have. So therefore, I think we should move to the next stage. But we'll follow the advice of the medical officer all the way through.
And finally, as you say, very soon you're going to have a new Labour leader. Have you cast your vote yet? Have you decided who you're going to be backing?
Oh, yeah, I said from the beginning I was supporting Becky Long-Bailey and Richard Bergen as deputy. We'll see who comes out of that, but all three of them are pretty good. And the good thing about it is that each one of them has said whoever's leader, they'll appoint the other two into the shadow cabinet. So it'll be quite I think, a united but a very talented shadow cabinet. Now that will take the Tories on. And
does Jeremy Corbyn stay in any cabinet that gets formed as well, any shadow cabinet?
I don't know. It's up to Jeremy or whoever is leader, but that's up to them. I'm going to the backbenches. As I say, I'm going to enjoy myself as an elder statesman.